The photographs scattered across Elena's bedroom floor told a story that shattered her world into a million pieces. Her hands trembled as she picked up each image, her heart breaking with every glance. There was her husband Victor, the man she had loved and trusted for 8 years, dressed in his finest tuxedo, his arm wrapped around another woman at what appeared to be the Metropolitan Museum gala. The woman wasn't just any woman, it was Sophia, his young, beautiful assistant with perfect blonde hair and a figure that belonged on magazine covers. Elena's breath caught in her throat as she studied the photos more carefully. Victor's smile in these pictures was different from any smile she had seen him give her in years. It was genuine, proud, loving. The way he looked at Sophia was the way he used to look at her when they first met, before she gained weight, before life had worn her down, before she became someone he was apparently ashamed to be seen with in public. The private investigator had done his job well. The envelope contained dozens of photos spanning the last 2 years, showing Victor and Sophia at charity galas, business dinners, art exhibitions and high society events. All the events Elena had wanted to attend, all the invitations she had been excited about, only to be told by Victor that she should stay home because she wouldn't enjoy it, or because he needed to focus on business. She remembered each occasion now with painful clarity. The cancer research benefit where she had bought a beautiful dress, only to be told at the last minute that spouses weren't invited. The art gallery opening where Victor said it would be boring for her. The Chamber of Commerce dinner where he claimed she looked tired and should rest instead. Every single time she had believed him, trusted him, and stayed home while he took Sophia as his companion. Elena sank onto her bed, clutching a photo of Victor and Sophia dancing at what looked like a New Year's Eve party. Sophia's head was resting on Victor's shoulder, and his hand was placed possessively on her lower back. They looked like a couple in love, like the couple Elena thought she and Victor were supposed to be. The worst part wasn't just the betrayal, though that cut deep enough. It was the realization that her own husband was ashamed of her. Elena looked at herself in the full-length mirror across from her bed and saw what Victor apparently saw: a woman who had let herself go, who had gained 50 pounds over the years, whose wardrobe consisted mainly of comfortable clothes rather than fashionable ones. She saw someone who no longer looked like the confident woman Victor had married. But that wasn't the woman she truly was inside. Elena had simply gotten comfortable in her marriage, had trusted that Victor loved her unconditionally, and had focused on other things like managing their household, supporting his career and maintaining their social connections. She had organized charity events from behind the scenes, had managed their finances, had been the perfect supportive wife, apparently too perfect, too invisible, too easy to hide away. As she continued looking through the photos, Elena noticed something else that made her blood boil. In several pictures, she recognized people she considered friends, people who knew she was Victor's wife, people who had smiled at her at dinner parties and asked about her well-being. They were all there, socializing with Victor and Sophia as if this was perfectly normal, as if Elena didn't exist. The final photo in the stack was the most damaging of all. It showed Victor and Sophia at the entrance to the Ritz-Carlton, clearly heading into the hotel together. The timestamp showed it was taken just 3 weeks ago, on the night Victor had told Elena he was working late on an important merger. She had even prepared his favorite meal and waited up for him, only to fall asleep on the couch around midnight. Elena felt something shift inside her chest, a cold hardness replacing the warm trust she had carried for 8 years. This wasn't just about an affair, this was about humiliation, about being erased from her own husband's life, about being deemed unworthy of appearing beside him in public. Victor hadn't just cheated on her. He had systematically excluded her from his world while parading another woman around as his companion. She picked up her phone and scrolled through Victor's recent social media posts. There he was at various events, always looking handsome and successful, but never with Elena by his side. When friends commented asking where his wife was, he always had an excuse ready. Elena's under the weather. She's busy with her own projects. She couldn't make it tonight. The lies came so easily to him, Elena realized, because he had been practicing them for years. The sound of Victor's car in the driveway made Elena quickly gather the photos and stuff them back into the envelope. She heard his footsteps on the marble floor of their entryway, heard him call out his usual greeting. "Elena, I'm home. Sorry I'm late, the Henderson meeting ran longer than expected." Another lie. The private investigator had confirmed that Victor had been at lunch with Sophia at an expensive restaurant downtown, the same restaurant where he had proposed to Elena 9 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on her. "I'm upstairs," Elena called back, her voice surprisingly steady despite the storm raging inside her. "I'll be down in a minute." She looked at herself in the mirror one more time, but this time she didn't see a woman who had let herself go. She saw a woman who had been systematically destroyed by someone who was supposed to love and protect her. She saw someone who had every right to be angry, who had every right to demand justice, who had every right to make sure Victor understood exactly what he had lost. As Victor's footsteps approached the bedroom, Elena made a decision that would change everything. She wasn't going to confront him tonight. She wasn't going to break down crying or beg him to explain. Instead, she was going to do something far more powerful. She was going to become the woman she was always meant to be, and she was going to make sure Victor regretted every single day he had chosen to hide her away. The door opened and Victor walked in, loosening his tie with the same gesture he had made thousands of times before. But this time, everything was different. This time, Elena was seeing him clearly for the first time in years. "How was your day, sweetheart?" he asked, the endearment sounding hollow and false to Elena's newly awakened ears. "It was enlightening," Elena replied, sliding the envelope discreetly under her pillow. "Very enlightening indeed." The next morning, Elena sat at their breakfast table watching Victor read his financial reports and sip his coffee, the same routine they had followed for 8 years. But today she was studying him like she had never seen him before, noticing things that had somehow become invisible through familiarity and trust. Victor was undeniably handsome at 42, with salt and pepper hair that made him look distinguished rather than old, and the kind of confident bearing that came from being worth $300 million. He worked out religiously, dressed impeccably, and carried himself like a man who owned the world, which in many ways he did. "The Morrison Charity Gala is next month," Victor said without looking up from his tablet. "I'll probably need to make an appearance." Elena's grip tightened on her coffee mug. The Morrison Charity Gala was the biggest social event of the year, the kind of gathering that appeared on the society pages of every major newspaper. It was also the event Elena had been hoping to attend for the past 3 years. "That sounds wonderful," Elena said carefully. "I should start looking for a dress." Victor's head snapped up, and Elena caught a flash of something panic in his eyes before his expression smoothed into practiced concern. "Oh, sweetheart, you know how these corporate events are. They're incredibly boring, just a bunch of business talk and networking. You'd hate it." His tone was gentle, apologetic, the same tone he always used when excluding her from his public life. "I helped organize 3 fundraisers last year," Elena reminded him. "I think I can handle a charity gala." "Yes, but those were different. Smaller, more intimate. This is, well, it's very political. Lots of business rivals, lots of tension. Trust me, you're better off having a relaxing evening at home." Elena nodded and smiled, the same understanding smile she had given him hundreds of times before. But inside she was cataloging every word, every excuse, every lie he had told her over the years. After Victor left for work, Elena went to her home office and opened her laptop. She spent the morning going through old photos and social media posts, building a timeline of her systematic exclusion from Victor's public life. The pattern was clear and devastating. For the first 2 years of their marriage, Elena had appeared in photos at Victor's side. She had been slimmer then, more fashionable, more confident. But as time passed and life settled into routine, as she gained weight and became more focused on supporting Victor's career from behind the scenes, her presence in his public life had gradually diminished. The turning point seemed to be 3 years ago, right around the time Sophia had been hired as Victor's assistant. Elena remembered the interview process, remembered Victor describing Sophia as highly qualified and perfect for the role. What he hadn't mentioned was that Sophia looked like a supermodel and had the kind of polished sophistication that came from growing up in Manhattan's elite circles. Elena pulled up Sophia's social media profiles and felt her heart sink further. Sophia's Instagram was a carefully curated collection of photos from high-end restaurants, charity events, art galleries, and cultural venues. Many of the locations Elena recognized as places Victor had told her he was going for business. The timestamps matched perfectly with nights he had come home late, apologizing for unexpected meetings or client dinners. The most painful discovery was a post from 6 months ago. Sophia had shared a photo of herself at the Symphony Gala, the same event Elena had specifically asked to attend because she loved classical music. Victor had told her the tickets were sold out and that he had to miss it too. But there was Sophia in a stunning evening gown, with the caption, "Beautiful evening supporting the arts." Elena's phone rang, interrupting her investigation. It was her best friend Rachel, whom she had known since college. "Hey, what are you up to today?" Rachel asked. "Just doing some research," Elena replied, not wanting to reveal what she had discovered. "Research for what?" "Another one of your charity projects." Elena paused, realizing that even Rachel didn't really know what was going on in her marriage. Elena had become so good at making excuses for Victor's behavior that she had convinced even herself that everything was normal. Rachel, can I ask you something? Be honest with me. Of course. When was the last time you saw Victor and me together at a social event? There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Elena, is everything okay? Just answer the question, please. Well, let me think. There was your anniversary party 2 years ago, but that was at your house. Before that, I honestly can't remember. You always have some reason why you can't make it to things, or Victor says you're busy with other commitments. Elena closed her eyes, feeling the truth settle over her like a heavy blanket. Have you ever seen Victor at events without me? Another pause, longer this time. Elena, what's going on? Have you? Yes, Rachel admitted quietly. At the Children's Hospital benefit last month. He was there with his assistant Sophia. But I figured you must have been sick or something because he said you couldn't make it. Elena felt tears threaten, but she pushed them back. She was done crying over Victor's lies. I was perfectly healthy that night, Elena said. I was at home, wondering why my husband couldn't take his wife to a charity event she helped plan. Oh my God, Elena. I had no idea. I mean, we all wondered, but Victor always had such reasonable explanations and you never said anything. After hanging up with Rachel, Elena sat in her office staring at the wall of photos showing her life with Victor. Their wedding day, vacations, family gatherings, all private moments, she realized. When was the last time they had attended a public event together as a couple? When was the last time Victor had seemed proud to have her by his side? She opened her laptop again and began a different kind of research. She looked up the best personal trainers in the city, the most exclusive salons, the top fashion consultants. If Victor was ashamed of her appearance, she would give him something to really think about. But this wasn't going to be about winning him back. Elena had learned something important about herself in the past 24 hours. She deserved better than a husband who hid her away like a shameful secret. She deserved someone who would be proud to stand beside her, who would choose her over and over again, who would never make her feel like she wasn't good enough. Elena picked up her phone and dialed the first number on her list, a personal trainer who worked exclusively with celebrities and socialites. Hello, this is Elena Morrison, she said, using her maiden name for the first time in years. I'd like to schedule a consultation. I have a very important event to prepare for, and I want to look absolutely perfect. As she scheduled appointment after appointment, Elena felt something she hadn't experienced in years: excitement about her own future. Victor had made his choice when he decided she wasn't worthy of appearing in public with him. Now she was going to make her own choice and it was going to change everything. The woman Victor had been hiding was about to disappear forever. In her place would emerge someone he never expected, someone who would make him realize exactly what he had lost, and someone who would never again allow herself to be treated as less than she deserved. The phone rang again and Victor's name appeared on the screen. Hi, sweetheart, his voice was warm and familiar. I'm going to be late tonight. The Peterson deal is more complicated than we thought, and I need to work through some details with my team. Of course, Elena replied smoothly. Don't worry about dinner. I have some plans of my own tonight. For the first time in years, that wasn't a lie. 3 weeks into her secret transformation, Elena barely recognized the woman staring back at her in the gym mirror. Working with Marcus, the celebrity trainer Rachel had recommended, she had already lost 15 pounds and gained muscle definition she hadn't seen since college. But the physical changes were only part of her evolution. You're getting stronger every day, Marcus observed as Elena completed her final set of weights. Not just physically. There's something different about your whole energy. Elena smiled, wiping sweat from her face with a towel. I'm discovering who I used to be before I forgot myself. The gym had become Elena's sanctuary, a place where she could focus entirely on herself without having to pretend everything was fine at home. She came here every morning after Victor left for work, spending 2 hours with Marcus and another hour in the pool. Victor never questioned her new routine, probably assuming it was another one of her hobbies that didn't affect his life. From the gym, Elena drove to her next appointment with Celeste, the stylist who had transformed 3 Oscar winners and countless socialites. Celeste's boutique was located in the most exclusive part of the city, the kind of place Elena had never dared to enter before. Darling, look at you, Celeste exclaimed as Elena walked in. The bone structure that was hiding under there is absolutely stunning. We're going to have such fun with this transformation. Elena had been honest with Celeste about her situation, explaining that she wanted to become the best version of herself for her own confidence, not to win back a cheating husband. Celeste had immediately understood and thrown herself into the project with professional enthusiasm. Today they were working on Elena's wardrobe, replacing her comfortable but shapeless clothes with pieces that fit her changing body perfectly. Elena tried on outfit after outfit, watching herself transform from invisible housewife to sophisticated woman with each change. "This is the one," Celeste said, stepping back to admire Elena in a perfectly tailored navy dress that hugged her curves in all the right places. "This dress says, I am confident, I am successful, and I am not to be underestimated." Elena turned in front of the three-way mirror, hardly believing what she saw. The dress was elegant but powerful, expensive but not flashy. It was the kind of dress she had always admired on other women but never thought she could wear herself. "I love it," Elena said, running her hands down the smooth fabric. "But I need something even more special. Something for a very important event." Celeste's eyes lit up with interest. "What kind of event?" "The Morrison Charity Gala. I want to make an entrance that no one will ever forget." "Oh my dear," Celeste clapped her hands together. "I have the perfect thing. It just came in from Paris and I've been saving it for exactly the right client." She disappeared into the back room and returned with a garment bag that seemed to glow with possibility. Inside was the most beautiful dress Elena had ever seen, a deep emerald green that would complement her skin tone perfectly, with a sophisticated cut that was both elegant and dramatic. "Try it on," Celeste urged. When Elena emerged from the dressing room, even she was stunned by her reflection. The dress transformed her into someone else entirely, someone confident, mysterious, and absolutely radiant. "That dress was made for you," Celeste whispered. "You look like a woman who could conquer the world." After leaving Celeste's boutique, Elena drove to her appointment with Dr. Sarah Chin, the therapist she had started seeing to help process her feelings about Victor's betrayal. Unlike the physical transformation, the emotional work was harder but equally necessary. "How are you feeling about the gala?" Dr. Chin asked as they settled into their session. "Nervous," Elena admitted, "but also excited. For the first time in years, I'm looking forward to something instead of dreading it." "That's significant progress. 3 weeks ago you were focused entirely on what Victor had done to you. Now you're focusing on what you want to do for yourself." Elena nodded. "I realized that I gave him too much power over my self-worth. I let him define whether I was good enough, pretty enough, worthy enough. But that was never his decision to make." "What do you hope will happen at the gala?" Elena was quiet for a moment, considering the question. "I want people to see me. Really see me. For 8 years I've been invisible in my own life. Victor made me believe that was where I belonged, but I don't want to be invisible anymore." "And what about Victor? What do you want from him?" "I want him to understand what he lost," Elena said firmly. "Not so he'll come back to me, but so he'll know that he made the biggest mistake of his life. I want him to see me and realize that he was never ashamed of my appearance, he was threatened by my potential." Dr. Chin smiled. "That's a very empowering perspective. You're not trying to become someone else to win him back. You're becoming who you always were underneath." That evening, Elena returned home to find Victor in his study, working on his laptop as usual. She paused in the doorway, watching him for a moment. 3 weeks ago, the sight of him would have filled her with love and longing. Now she felt nothing but a cold detachment. "How was your day?" Victor asked without looking up. "Productive," Elena replied. "I've been keeping busy." Good. "Oh, by the way, I'll be working late tomorrow night. Big client dinner." Elena almost smiled. She knew from the private investigators' reports that Victor had dinner reservations for 2 at Le Bernardin, the same restaurant where they had celebrated their 5th anniversary. This time, his dinner companion would be Sophia. "I might go out tomorrow night too," Elena said casually. "Rachel invited me to a book club meeting." Victor finally looked up, surprised. Elena rarely went out in the evenings anymore. "That's great, sweetheart. You should get out more." If only he knew how much she had been getting out lately. Elena had been living a completely separate life for 3 weeks, and Victor was so absorbed in his own deceptions that he hadn't noticed any of the changes happening right under his nose. As Elena prepared for bed that night, she looked at herself in the bathroom mirror and smiled. The woman looking back at her was stronger, more confident, and more beautiful than she had been in years. But most importantly, she was becoming authentic again, the person she had been before she let someone else's shame diminish her light. In just 4 weeks, she would walk into the Morrison Charity Gala and show the world who Elena Morrison really was. Victor thought he was protecting his image by hiding her away, but he was about to learn that the most dangerous thing he could have done was underestimate his wife. The revenge Elena had planned wasn't about destroying Victor, it was about revealing the truth. And sometimes, the truth was the most powerful weapon of all. By week 6 of her transformation, Elena had established a routine that felt more like her real life than the 8 years she had spent trying to be the perfect, invisible wife. Every morning, she kissed Victor goodbye as he left for his office, then headed out to build the life she deserved. Her first stop was always the gym, where Marcus had become more than just a trainer. He was a friend who believed in her potential. Today, as Elena completed a workout that would have been impossible 2 months ago, she felt the power that came from taking control of her own body. "You've lost 30 pounds and gained so much strength," Marcus observed as Elena finished her final set. "But the biggest change is in your confidence. You move differently now." "I feel different," Elena replied, toweling off. "Like I'm finally inhabiting my own life instead of just watching it happen." From the gym, Elena drove to her second appointment of the day, a meeting with James Rodriguez, the business consultant she had secretly hired. James specialized in helping people start their own companies, and Elena had decided it was time to use her MBA for something more meaningful than managing Victor's social calendar. "I've been thinking about your ideas for the nonprofit sector," James said as they settled into his office. "Your experience organizing charity events, combined with your business background, could be the foundation for something really impressive." Elena had been developing a business plan for a consulting company that would help nonprofits maximize their fundraising effectiveness. She had connections in the charity world, organizational skills, and access to wealthy donors through her social network. Most importantly, she had a passion for the work that had been dormant for too long. "I want to launch right after the Morrison Gala," Elena said. "I want to use that event as my coming out party, both personally and professionally." "That's ambitious," James noted. "Are you sure you're ready for that kind of public attention?" Elena smiled. "I've been invisible for 8 years. I think I can handle being seen." They spent the next hour refining Elena's business plan and discussing startup logistics. Elena had been using her own inheritance money funds Victor knew nothing about to finance both her transformation and her new business venture. Her grandmother had left her a substantial trust fund that she had never touched, preferring to let Victor handle their finances. Now that money was becoming her independence fund. After her business meeting, Elena drove to her favorite new location, the library downtown where she had been volunteering. She had started working there as part of her effort to rebuild her social connections outside of Victor's world, but it had become much more than that. "Elena, perfect timing," called out Patricia, the head librarian. "The children's reading program starts in 15 minutes, and they've been asking for you all week." Elena had discovered that she loved working with the kids in the after-school program. They didn't care about her weight or her clothes or whether her husband was proud to be seen with her. They just enjoyed her enthusiasm and the silly voices she used when reading stories aloud. As she read to a group of 8-year-olds, Elena realized this was another part of herself that had been suppressed during her marriage. Victor had always dismissed her desire to have children, saying they should focus on his career first. Now she wondered if he had simply been afraid that children would make her even less suitable for his public image. "Miss Elena, will you be here tomorrow?" asked Sophie, a little girl who had become particularly attached to her. "I'll be here every Tuesday and Thursday," Elena promised. "I'm not going anywhere." The certainty in her own voice surprised her. She wasn't going anywhere because she was finally building a life that belonged to her, not to Victor's expectations or limitations. That evening, Elena had dinner with Rachel at their favorite restaurant, the same place where they had celebrated Rachel's promotion 6 months ago, when Elena had made excuses for Victor's absence. "I can't get over how amazing you look," Rachel said, studying Elena across the table. "It's not just the weight loss, though. You look fantastic. It's something in your eyes. You look alive." "I feel alive," Elena replied. "For the first time in years, I feel like I'm actually living my life instead of just existing in it." "Have you decided what you're going to do about Victor?" Elena took a sip of her wine, a full-bodied red that she had ordered confidently, unlike the safe white wine she used to default to when trying to avoid drawing attention. "I'm going to divorce him," she said simply. "But first, I'm going to make sure he understands exactly what he's losing." Rachel leaned forward, intrigued. "The gala?" "The gala," Elena confirmed. "I'm going to walk into that room looking better than I ever have, and I'm going to remind everyone, including Victor, that I exist. That I've always existed. He's been so busy hiding me away that he forgot I'm actually worth being proud of. What if he tries to win you back?" Elena had been thinking about this possibility. The old Elena might have been tempted by Victor's attention after years of feeling invisible. But the new Elena understood her own worth. "Then he'll learn that some mistakes can't be undone," she replied. "I'm not the same woman who would have accepted his apologies and excuses. I'm someone who knows she deserves better." After dinner, Elena returned home to find Victor in the living room, working on his laptop as usual. But tonight something was different. He looked up when she entered, really looked at her, and she saw a flicker of confusion in his eyes. "You look different tonight," he said slowly. Elena smiled. "Do I? I feel the same as always." But that wasn't true, and they both knew it. Elena was carrying herself differently, speaking with more confidence, taking up space in a way she hadn't done in years. The changes were becoming too significant to hide, even from someone as self-absorbed as Victor. "Have you been working out?" he asked. "A little," Elena replied casually. "Just trying to stay healthy." Victor nodded, but she could see him studying her more carefully. For the first time in years, his wife was becoming visible to him again, but it was too late. Elena was no longer the woman who would have been thrilled by his attention. As she got ready for bed that night, Elena looked at herself in the full-length mirror and felt a surge of pride. The woman looking back at her was strong, confident, and beautiful. But most importantly, she was authentic. She was becoming the person she was always meant to be, before she let someone else's shame dim her light. In 2 weeks, she would walk into the Morrison Charity Gala and show the world who Elena Morrison really was. Victor had made his choice when he decided she wasn't worthy of appearing beside him in public. Now she was going to show him and everyone else exactly what he had been hiding. The revenge she had planned wasn't about destruction. It was about revelation. And Elena was ready to reveal herself to the world. The morning sun streamed through Elena's home office window as she put the finishing touches on her plan. Spread across her desk were invitations, business cards, legal documents, and photographs, the tools of her carefully orchestrated revelation. In exactly 10 days, the Morrison Charity Gala would take place, and Elena would step out of the shadows forever. Her phone buzzed with a text from her private investigator. "Target confirmed for Saturday night event. We'll have final documentation package ready by Thursday." Elena smiled as she deleted the message. She had continued monitoring Victor's activities, not out of jealousy, but to ensure her timing was perfect. She needed to know exactly when and how to make her move for maximum impact. A knock at her office door interrupted her planning. Elena quickly closed her laptop and gathered the papers. "Come in." Victor entered, dressed in one of his perfectly tailored suits, ready for another day of running his empire while keeping his wife safely hidden at home. "I'll be late tonight," he said, straightening his tie. "Board meeting followed by dinner with potential investors." Elena nodded, knowing from her investigator that Victor actually had dinner reservations for 2 at the most romantic restaurant in the city. Sophia would be wearing the diamond earrings Victor had bought last week, the same earrings Elena had admired in a jewelry store window months ago, only to be told they were too flashy for her. "That's fine," Elena replied. "I have plans too." Victor paused, something in her tone making him look at her more carefully. "Plans? Rachel and I are going to a gallery opening. The new contemporary art exhibit downtown." It wasn't a lie. Elena was going to the gallery opening, but not with Rachel. She was going alone, as practice for being confident in social situations without Victor's presence or his absence defining her experience. "Since when do you like contemporary art?" Victor asked, and Elena heard the dismissive tone that had become so familiar over the years. "Since always," she replied calmly. "You've just never asked." After Victor left, Elena returned to her planning. She opened her laptop and reviewed the guest list for the Morrison Gala, which she had helped organize for the past 3 years. Every major player in the city's business and social circles would be there, including several people who had been asking about Elena's mysterious absence from recent events. Her phone rang and Celeste's name appeared on the screen. "Darling, I have the most wonderful news." Celeste's excited voice filled the room. "The jewelry designer agreed to loan us the emerald set for the gala. You're going to look absolutely divine." Elena had seen the emerald necklace and earrings at an exclusive showroom. They were museum-quality pieces that would complement her dress perfectly while making a statement about her new status as someone who belonged in elite circles. "That's perfect," Elena said. "And the shoes. Custom-made and ready for pickup tomorrow. Darling, when you walk into that gala, you're going to stop traffic." After confirming the final details with Celeste, Elena made her next call to the photographer she had hired to document the evening. She wanted professional photos of her transformation, both for her own records and for the business launch she was planning. "Mrs. Morrison, I've confirmed my position for Saturday night," the photographer said. "I'll capture your entrance and several key moments throughout the evening as discussed." Elena's final call was to Dr. Chin, her therapist, who had become instrumental in helping her process this journey. How are you feeling about Saturday? Dr. Chen asked. Nervous but ready, Elena admitted. I keep thinking about all the years I let Victor convince me I wasn't good enough to appear beside him in public. Now I realize he was never protecting me from embarrassment, he was protecting himself from competition. That's a significant insight. What do you mean by competition? Elena paused, thinking about the question. I think Victor fell in love with my potential, but then he got scared of it. When we first met, I was confident, ambitious, successful in my own right. But marriage made me focus on supporting his dreams instead of pursuing my own. He liked having a wife who made him look good privately but didn't challenge him publicly. And now I'm not interested in making anyone else look good at my own expense. I'm ready to shine on my own. That afternoon, Elena drove to the gallery opening, her first solo social event in years. She wore one of her new outfits, a sophisticated black pantsuit that made her feel powerful and elegant. As she walked into the gallery, Elena felt a familiar flutter of nervousness, but this time it was mixed with excitement rather than dread. Elena? Elena Morrison? She turned to see Jonathan Phillips, a prominent art collector she had met at several charity events when she still attended them with Victor. Jonathan, how wonderful to see you, Elena said, extending her hand with genuine warmth. My God, you look fantastic, Jonathan said, clearly impressed. I haven't seen you at any events lately. Victor always says you're busy with other commitments. I've been focusing on some personal projects, Elena replied smoothly. But I'm planning to be more visible in the social scene again. They spent 20 minutes discussing the artwork, and Elena found herself remembering how much she enjoyed intelligent conversation about culture and art. Victor had always dominated these discussions when they attended events together, leaving Elena to play the role of supportive wife rather than equal participant. You should come to my gallery showing next month, Jonathan said as they parted. I think you'd particularly enjoy the new contemporary pieces we're featuring. I'd love to, Elena replied and meant it. As she drove home that evening, Elena felt a surge of confidence. She had successfully navigated a social situation on her own terms, engaging with people as herself rather than as Victor's accessory. It was a preview of the life she was about to claim. Back home, she found Victor's study empty and a note on the kitchen counter saying he would be very late. Elena smiled, knowing he was probably having his romantic dinner with Sophia while she was becoming the woman who would soon make him regret every choice he had made. She spent the evening finalizing the last details of her plan. Everything was in place. The dress, the jewelry, the photographer, the business launch materials, and most importantly, the legal documents that would ensure her independence regardless of how Saturday night unfolded. Elena opened her laptop and began typing an email that she would send to Victor after the gala, an email that would change their lives forever. Victor, by the time you read this, you will understand that I know everything. I know about Sophia, I know about the lies, and I know about the years you spent being ashamed of me while I supported your success from the shadows. I am not writing this letter to save our marriage, I am writing it to inform you that our marriage is over. She saved the draft and closed the laptop. In 10 days, Victor would learn that the woman he had underestimated had been planning the most important performance of her life. And unlike his deception with Sophia, Elena's revelation would be truthful, powerful, and devastating. The old Elena would have confronted him privately, would have cried and begged for explanations, would have accepted his apologies and promises to change. But the new Elena understood that some betrayals required public accountability, and some truths needed to be revealed in the light where everyone could see them. Saturday night was going to be the beginning of Elena's new life, and the end of Victor's comfortable lies. The week leading up to the Morrison Charity Gala passed in a blur of final preparations. Elena moved through her days with the focused intensity of someone preparing for the most important performance of her life. Every detail had to be perfect, every element of her plan carefully orchestrated. On Monday morning, Elena sat in James Rodriguez's office, reviewing the final paperwork for her new consulting business. Everything is in order, James confirmed, sliding the incorporation documents across his desk. Morrison Nonprofit Consulting will officially launch on Monday morning, the day after the gala. Your business cards, website, and marketing materials are all ready. Elena looked at her new business card, feeling a surge of pride. After 8 years of being defined only as Victor's wife, she was about to become Elena Morrison, CEO and founder of her own company. I've already scheduled meetings with 3 potential clients for next week, Elena said. Organizations I've worked with through my volunteer activities. They're excited about what I can offer. You've built this from nothing in just 2 months, James observed. That takes remarkable focus and determination. I had remarkable motivation, Elena replied. Tuesday brought Elena's final dress fitting with Celeste. As she stood in front of the three-way mirror, Elena barely recognized the woman looking back at her. The emerald green dress fit her transformed body perfectly, and the confidence radiating from her posture made her look like someone who belonged on magazine covers. You are going to be the most stunning woman at that gala, Celeste declared. But more importantly, you look like someone who knows her own worth. I feel like someone who knows her own worth, Elena replied, smoothing the dress's elegant lines. For the first time in years. Wednesday was Elena's final session with Marcus at the gym. Over 2 months, she had lost 35 pounds and gained muscle definition that made her feel strong and powerful. But the physical transformation was only part of what Marcus had helped her achieve. You're not the same person who walked in here 2 months ago, Marcus said as Elena completed her workout. That woman was hiding from her own strength. This woman is ready to show the world who she really is. Thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself, Elena said, giving him a hug. I didn't make you strong, Marcus replied. I just helped you remember that you already were. Thursday brought Elena's final therapy session before the gala. Dr. Chin had been instrumental in helping Elena process her feelings and develop the emotional strength to follow through with her plan. How do you feel about seeing Victor's reaction? Dr. Chin asked. I'm not doing this for his reaction, Elena said thoughtfully. I'm doing this for myself. For 8 years I let him make me invisible. Saturday night, I'm going to be impossible to ignore. And if he tries to reconcile after he sees you? Then he'll learn that some damage can't be undone, Elena replied firmly. I'm not the same woman who would have been grateful for his attention. I'm someone who knows she deserves better than a man who's ashamed to be seen with her. Friday was for final preparations. Elena spent the morning at the salon, where her stylist transformed her hair into an elegant updo that showcased her bone structure and the dramatic earrings she would wear. The afternoon was spent picking up her jewelry and shoes, confirming details with the photographer, and reviewing her plan one final time. That evening, as Elena prepared for her last night as Victor's hidden wife, she found him in his study working on his laptop. Big day tomorrow, she said casually. Victor looked up, distracted. What's tomorrow? Elena felt a familiar stab of disappointment, though she wasn't surprised. The Morrison Charity Gala. The event I've been helping to organize for months. Oh, right, Victor said, turning back to his screen. Well, you know I'll represent us well. These corporate events are always the same lot of networking, lot of business talk. You'd be bored to tears. Elena nodded, hiding her smile. I'm sure you'll represent us perfectly. If only he knew how perfectly he was about to represent them both. That night, Elena lay in bed listening to Victor's steady breathing and thinking about their 8 years together. There had been genuine love once, real partnership and mutual respect. But somewhere along the way Victor had started seeing her as a liability rather than an asset, someone to hide rather than someone to be proud of. Tomorrow he would learn the difference between a woman who accepts being hidden and a woman who refuses to be invisible. Elena fell asleep thinking about the emerald dress hanging in her closet, about the business cards with her name and title, about the new life waiting for her on the other side of tomorrow night. She had spent 2 months becoming the woman she was always meant to be, and now it was time to show the world exactly who Elena Morrison really was. Victor had made his choice when he decided she wasn't worthy of appearing beside him in public. Tomorrow, Elena would show him exactly what he had been hiding from the world and exactly what he was about to lose forever. Saturday evening arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that made the city feel electric with possibility. Elena stood in her bedroom, putting the finishing touches on her transformation while Victor showered, completely unaware that his wife was preparing to step out of the shadows he had created for her. The emerald dress fit her like it had been designed specifically for her body, highlighting every curve and angle she had worked so hard to perfect. The matching jewelry caught the light with every movement, and her hair was styled in an elegant updo that showcased her bone structure and the confidence that now radiated from her every gesture. Elena looked at herself in the full-length mirror and saw a woman who could command any room she entered. This wasn't the Elena who had spent 8 years making herself smaller to accommodate Victor's comfort. This was the Elena who had existed before marriage, before self-doubt, before allowing someone else to define her worth. Elena, have you seen my gold cufflinks? Victor called from the bathroom. They're in your jewelry box, she replied, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Victor emerged from the bathroom, adjusting his bow tie, looking every inch the successful billionaire. He was handsome in his tuxedo, Elena had to admit, but the sight of him no longer filled her with love and pride. Instead, she felt a cold satisfaction knowing that tonight, he would finally understand what he had lost. "You look nice," Victor said absently, barely glancing at her as he searched for his cufflinks. Elena almost laughed. After 2 months of intensive transformation, after losing 35 pounds and spending thousands of dollars on clothes, jewelry, and styling, her husband's response was, "You look nice," delivered without even really looking at her. "Thank you," she replied simply. "Don't wait up for me tonight," Victor continued, still focused on his appearance. "These events usually run very late and there are always after parties. I might not be home until morning." Elena nodded, knowing that Victor planned to spend the night with Sophia after the gala. The private investigator had confirmed their hotel reservation at the Ritz-Carlton, the same hotel where Victor had proposed to Elena 9 years ago. "Have a wonderful evening," Elena said, meaning it in ways Victor couldn't possibly understand. After Victor left for the gala, Elena waited exactly 30 minutes before beginning her own preparations for the evening. She had timed everything perfectly. Victor would be settled at his table with Sophia before Elena made her entrance. Elena's driver arrived promptly at 8 o'clock. She had hired a professional chauffeur and luxury car for the evening, wanting to arrive in style befitting the woman she had become. As the sleek black sedan pulled up to the Morrison Hotel, where the gala was being held, Elena felt her heart rate accelerate with anticipation. "We've arrived, Mrs. Morrison," the driver said, moving to open her door. Elena took a deep breath and stepped out of the car. The moment her feet touched the red carpet leading to the hotel entrance, she felt the shift in energy around her. Photographers who had been casually shooting other arrivals suddenly focused their attention on her, clearly intrigued by this stunning woman they didn't recognize. "Excuse me, miss, could we get your name for the society pages?" one photographer called out. Elena smiled mysteriously and continued walking, letting them wonder. She wanted her identity to be revealed at the perfect moment, not on the red carpet. As she entered the hotel lobby, Elena felt the familiar flutter of nervousness, but this time it was mixed with excitement and power. She was no longer the woman who attended events as Victor's quiet accessory. Tonight she was the main attraction. The ballroom was magnificent, decorated in gold and white with hundreds of candles creating a romantic atmosphere. Elena had helped choose every detail of the decoration, had worked on this event for months, but tonight she was seeing it all as a guest rather than an invisible organizer. As Elena approached the entrance to the ballroom, she paused to survey the scene. The city's elite were all their business leaders, politicians, celebrities, and socialites. These were people who had known her as Victor's wife, people who had asked about her absence from recent events, people who were about to get their answer. Elena spotted Victor immediately. He was seated at table 1, the place of honor, looking relaxed and confident as he chatted with other prominent businessmen. Beside him sat Sophia, stunning in a red dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. They looked like the perfect power couple, and Elena could see other guests admiring them. For just a moment, Elena felt a pang of the old insecurity. Sophia was undeniably beautiful, young, and polished in the way that came from growing up with money and privilege. But then Elena remembered who she had become over the past 2 months, and the insecurity transformed into determination. Elena handed her invitation to the attendant at the ballroom entrance and stepped into the room. The effect was immediate and electric. Conversations paused mid-sentence as heads turned to see who this mysterious, stunning woman was. Elena walked with the confidence of someone who belonged exactly where she was, her emerald dress catching the light with every step. She moved through the room slowly, allowing people to see her, to wonder about her identity. Elena nodded graciously to acquaintances, accepting compliments on her appearance with the poise of someone comfortable with admiration. "My God, who is that woman?" Elena heard someone whisper behind her. "I don't know, but she's absolutely gorgeous. She looks familiar, but I can't place her." Elena made her way toward the bar, positioning herself where she would be clearly visible to Victor's table. She ordered a glass of champagne and turned to survey the room, knowing that dozens of people were watching her every move. It took exactly 4 minutes for Victor to notice her. Elena saw the exact moment his gaze landed on her. She watched his expression change from casual interest to confusion to shock. He leaned forward in his chair, squinting across the room as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Sophia followed Victor's gaze and Elena saw her face change as well, though for different reasons. Even from across the room, Sophia could sense that this mysterious woman represented some kind of threat to her comfortable arrangement with Victor. Elena raised her champagne glass in a subtle toast toward Victor's table, allowing herself a small smile as recognition dawned in her husband's eyes. The look of shock on his face was worth every dollar she had spent, every hour she had worked out, every moment of doubt she had overcome. She was no longer Victor's hidden wife. She was Elena Morrison, and she was impossible to ignore. The real show was just beginning. The ballroom buzzed with energy as Elena continued to circulate, accepting compliments and engaging in conversation with people who had known her for years but were seeing her clearly for the first time. She moved with the grace of someone who belonged in these circles, who had always belonged but had simply been kept in the shadows. Elena? Elena Morrison? She turned to see Margaret Whitfield, the wife of a prominent judge and one of the city's most influential socialites. Margaret had always been polite but distant at the few events Elena had attended with Victor in their early marriage years. "Margaret, how lovely to see you," Elena replied with genuine warmth. "My dear, you look absolutely stunning. I hardly recognized you." Margaret's eyes were bright with curiosity. "I feel like I haven't seen you anywhere in ages. Victor always says you're busy with other commitments." Elena smiled, glancing across the room where Victor was clearly trying to get her attention while pretending to listen to Sophia. "I've been focusing on some personal projects, but I'm ready to be more social again." "Well, you must tell me your secrets. You look like you've discovered the fountain of youth." As Elena chatted with Margaret, she noticed more and more people gathering around them, all curious about this transformed woman they barely recognized. Word was spreading through the ballroom Victor Morrison's mysterious wife had finally appeared, and she was absolutely radiant. From across the room, Elena could see Victor growing increasingly agitated. He kept checking his phone, clearly debating whether to approach her. Sophia was speaking to him urgently, probably trying to understand who this woman was and why Victor looked like he had seen a ghost. Elena excused herself from the growing group of admirers and walked purposefully toward the auction display, where items for the charity auction were elegantly arranged. She positioned herself next to a beautiful painting, knowing it would provide the perfect backdrop for what was about to happen. Right on cue, Victor appeared at her side, his face a mixture of confusion, anger, and something that might have been fear. "Elena, what are you doing here?" he hissed under his breath, his polished public persona slipping for just a moment. "I'm attending a charity gala," Elena replied calmly, sipping her champagne. "The same charity gala I helped organize for the past 3 years. You know what I mean. Why didn't you tell me you were coming?" Elena turned to face him fully, and Victor actually took a step back at the intensity in her eyes. "The same reason you didn't tell me you were bringing Sophia as your date tonight. The same reason you haven't told me about any of the events you've attended with her over the past 2 years. Victor's face went pale. "Elena, I don't know what you think you know, but I know everything, Victor." Elena's voice was quiet but carried the weight of absolute certainty. "I know about the Metropolitan Museum Gala, the Symphony Benefit, the Children's Hospital fundraiser. I know about every lie you've told, every excuse you've made, every time you've chosen to be ashamed of me instead of proud of me." Before Victor could respond, Elena heard the sound of the microphone being adjusted on the stage. The evening's program was about to begin, which meant it was time for the moment she had been planning for months. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention please," announced Robert Morrison, the hotel owner and tonight's host. "Before we begin our auction, I'd like to recognize some of the people who made tonight's event possible." Elena smiled at Victor one last time. "Excuse me, darling. I have something important to do." She walked away from Victor toward the stage, leaving him standing alone looking stunned. Elena could feel hundreds of eyes following her as she approached Robert Morrison, who had been trying to get her attention all evening. "Robert," Elena said warmly, reaching the edge of the stage. "Elena. My God, you look incredible. I've been hoping to talk to you all evening." "Ladies and gentlemen," Robert said into the microphone, "I'd like everyone to meet one of the main organizers of tonight's event, Mrs. Elena Morrison." The ballroom erupted in surprised murmurs as people realized who the mysterious, stunning woman had been all along. Elena gracefully accepted Robert's hand and stepped onto the stage, the spotlight highlighting her emerald dress and confident bearing. "Thank you, Robert," Elena said, taking the microphone. Her voice was clear and strong, carrying easily through the ballroom. "I have to admit, it's wonderful to finally be here in person instead of just working behind the scenes." She paused, scanning the crowd until her eyes found Victor, who was standing frozen next to Sophia, his face a mask of horror as he realized what was happening. "You see, for the past few years I've been what you might call an invisible organizer. I've planned events, coordinated with vendors, managed logistics, but somehow I never seemed to make it to the actual celebrations." Elena's tone was light, conversational, but everyone in the room could sense the undercurrent of meaning. Tonight, I decided that needed to change. I decided it was time to step out of the shadows and join all of you in supporting the causes I care about. The applause was enthusiastic, but Elena could see the confusion on many faces. People were trying to understand why Victor Morrison's wife had been absent from events, why she was talking about working behind the scenes instead of alongside her prominent husband. I want to thank everyone who has been asking about me at recent events, Elena continued, her eyes finding several people in the crowd who had questioned her absence. Your concern meant more than you know. It reminded me that I have friends and connections beyond just being someone's wife. The implication was subtle but clear to anyone paying attention. Elena was establishing herself as an individual, separate from Victor, with her own relationships and her own value. In fact, I'm excited to announce that I'll be launching my own consulting business next week, Morrison Nonprofit Consulting. I'll be helping charitable organizations maximize their fundraising effectiveness, combining my experience in event planning with my business background. This announcement sent another wave of surprise through the crowd. Elena Morrison wasn't just making a social comeback, she was declaring her independence. Elena looked directly at Victor as she delivered her final words. Sometimes we discover that we're capable of much more than we ever imagined. Sometimes we realize that we've been hiding our light under a bushel, waiting for someone else's permission to shine. Well, I'm done waiting for permission. The applause was thunderous now, with people genuinely impressed by Elena's poise and presentation. As she handed the microphone back to Robert and gracefully descended from the stage, Elena was surrounded by well-wishers and people wanting to congratulate her on both her appearance and her business announcement. But Elena's eyes were on Victor, who was pushing through the crowd toward her, his face dark with anger and embarrassment. Sophia followed behind him, looking confused and increasingly concerned about her position in this unfolding drama. Elena had fired the first shot in her campaign for recognition and respect. Now it was time to see how Victor would respond to discovering that his hidden wife had become a woman impossible to ignore. The battle for Elena's dignity was just beginning, and she had every intention of winning. The confrontation Elena had been preparing for finally arrived as Victor reached her side, his public composure barely masking his private fury. Sophia hovered uncertainly behind him, clearly realizing that her comfortable position as Victor's secret companion was suddenly in jeopardy. Elena, we need to talk. Now. Victor's voice was low but intense, his hand reaching for her arm. Elena stepped back smoothly, avoiding his touch while maintaining her gracious smile for the benefit of the many people still watching their interaction. Of course, darling, she replied loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. But let's not disappear from our own charity event. We have responsibilities to our guests. Victor's jaw tightened at her emphasis on our event and our guests. Elena was publicly claiming equal ownership of the social obligations he had been handling alone for years, effectively announcing that she was no longer content to remain invisible. Mrs. Morrison, interrupted Caroline Stevens, one of the city's most prominent philanthropists, I wanted to tell you how excited I am about your new consulting business. The Children's Foundation could really use someone with your expertise. I'd love to discuss that with you, Elena replied warmly, pulling out one of her new business cards. Please call me next week. As Caroline walked away with Elena's card, Victor stared in disbelief. What the hell do you think you're doing? I'm networking, Elena replied calmly. Building my professional relationships. Isn't that what people do at business events? Before Victor could respond, more people approached Elena with congratulations and business inquiries. Word had spread quickly through the ballroom that Victor Morrison's mysterious wife was not only stunning but also launching her own company. Everyone wanted to meet the woman who had been hiding in plain sight. Elena handled each interaction with professional grace, handing out business cards and scheduling follow-up meetings. She was in her element, demonstrating the social and business skills that Victor had been systematically suppressing for years. Elena, this is quite a surprise, said Thomas Mitchell, CEO of one of the city's largest corporations. Victor never mentioned you were interested in nonprofit consulting. Victor has always been very supportive of my behind-the-scenes work, Elena replied diplomatically, though her eyes met her husband's with unmistakable challenge. But I felt it was time to step into a more public role. Thomas nodded approvingly. Well, Mitchell Industries has several charitable initiatives we're always looking to improve. I'll definitely be calling you. As Thomas walked away, Victor's composure finally cracked. Stop this, he whispered harshly. You're embarrassing yourself. Elena turned to face him fully, and Victor was struck again by how completely she had transformed. The confident, poised woman standing before him bore little resemblance to the quiet, invisible wife he had left at home for years. I'm embarrassing myself? Elena's voice was dangerously quiet. Victor, I've spent 8 years being embarrassed. Embarrassed that my husband was ashamed to be seen with me. Embarrassed that I had to make excuses for why I couldn't attend events with you. Embarrassed that people pitied me for having a husband who treated me like a dirty secret. That's not. Don't. Elena held up her hand. Don't lie to me anymore. I know about Sophia. I know about every event you've taken her to while telling me I wouldn't enjoy it. I know about the hotel reservations, the jewelry, the romantic dinners at restaurants where we used to celebrate our anniversaries. Victor's face went completely white. Behind him, Sophia made a small sound of distress, finally understanding that her affair with Victor was no longer secret. Elena, listen to me. No, Victor. You listen to me. Elena's voice was steady but filled with authority. For 8 years, I listened to your excuses, your lies, your reasons why I wasn't good enough to appear in public with you. I believed you when you said these events would be boring for me. I trusted you when you said spouses weren't invited. I accepted it when you implied that I didn't look appropriate for high society gatherings. People were beginning to notice the intense conversation, some moving closer to hear what was being said. Elena was aware of the growing audience, but she no longer cared about causing a scene. She had spent too many years caring about Victor's comfort at the expense of her own dignity. But the truth is, you were never protecting me from embarrassment, Elena continued, her voice growing stronger. You were protecting yourself from having a wife who might overshadow you, who might have her own opinions and ambitions, who might be more than just a beautiful accessory. Elena, please, Victor said desperately, finally realizing how public this confrontation was becoming. Can we discuss this at home? We don't have a home anymore, Victor, Elena replied calmly. I filed for divorce yesterday. My lawyer will be contacting yours on Monday morning. The words hit Victor like a physical blow. Around them, the conversations had stopped entirely as people realized they were witnessing the public dissolution of one of the city's most prominent marriages. You can't be serious, Victor stammered. Elena, I love you. We can work this out. Elena almost laughed at the irony. You love me? Victor, you've been hiding me away for years because you were ashamed of me. You've been having an affair with your assistant while telling me I wasn't sophisticated enough for your business events. That's not love, that's control. She gestured towards Sophia, who looked like she wanted to disappear entirely. If you love anyone, it's her. And you're welcome to each other. I'm sure she'll make a much more suitable wife for a man who values appearance over substance. Elena began to turn away, but Victor grabbed her arm, his desperation finally overriding his public composure. Don't walk away from me, he said, his voice rising. I made you who you are. Without me, you're nothing. The words hung in the air like a slap, and Elena felt every eye in the ballroom focused on them. This was the moment she had been unconsciously preparing for, the moment when Victor revealed exactly what he thought of her. Elena looked down at Victor's hand on her arm, then back up to his face with an expression of such cold contempt that he actually released her. Victor, she said quietly, but her voice carried clearly through the silent ballroom, you didn't make me who I am. You tried to unmake me. For 8 years, you systematically destroyed my confidence, my ambitions, and my sense of self-worth. You convinced me that I wasn't good enough to stand beside you in public while you paraded another woman around as your companion. Elena straightened to her full height, and Victor seemed to shrink before her. But I rebuilt myself. I remembered who I was before I let you diminish me. And now everyone can see exactly what you've been hiding, not because I wasn't good enough, but because you were threatened by what I could become. Elena looked around the ballroom at the hundreds of people watching this confrontation, then back at Victor one final time. Enjoy the rest of your evening with Sophia, she said clearly. And enjoy explaining to all these people why you spent years lying about your wife's absence while carrying on a public affair with your assistant. With that, Elena turned and walked away, leaving Victor standing alone in the center of the ballroom with his lies exposed and his reputation in ruins. The woman he had tried to keep invisible had just become the most talked about person in the room, while he had become the man who was too ashamed of his wife to be seen with her in public. Elena had won more than just her freedom, she had reclaimed her dignity and shown everyone exactly who she really was. And she was just getting started. 6 months after the Morrison Charity Gala, Elena stood in her new office overlooking the city skyline, reviewing the contract that would make Morrison Nonprofit Consulting one of the most successful firms of its kind in the region. The morning sun streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the awards and recognition certificates that already lined her walls. Her assistant knocked and entered with her daily schedule. "Mrs. Morrison, your 10 o'clock appointment with the Children's Hospital Foundation is confirmed, and the mayor's office called to schedule a meeting about the upcoming literacy campaign." Elena smiled, still getting used to being addressed by her professional title rather than just as someone's wife. "Thank you, Jessica. And please call me Elena." Since launching her business the week after the gala, Elena had exceeded every goal she had set for herself. Word had spread quickly through the city's philanthropic circles about the woman who had emerged from behind the scenes to revolutionize nonprofit fundraising. Her client list read like a who's who of charitable organizations, and her innovative approaches had already raised millions of dollars for worthy causes. But success in business was only part of Elena's transformation. She had also built a rich personal life filled with genuine friendships and meaningful relationships. No longer the isolated wife hiding at home, Elena was a visible presence in the city's cultural and social scenes, not as someone's accessory, but as a force in her own right. Her phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. "Lunch tomorrow? I want to hear about your date with Dr. Andrews." Elena smiled, thinking about Daniel Andrews, the pediatrician she had met while volunteering at the Children's Hospital. Their relationship was developing slowly, built on mutual respect, shared values, and genuine affection. Daniel had never known the old Elena, the one who had let herself become invisible. To him, she was simply a confident, accomplished woman who happened to catch his eye at a charity event. More importantly, Daniel was proud to be seen with her. He introduced her to his friends and colleagues with genuine enthusiasm, included her in his social plans without making it seem like a favor, and never once suggested that she toned down her success to make him more comfortable. "Elena?" Jessica's voice interrupted her thoughts. "There's a call for you on line 1. It's Victor Morrison." Elena felt a familiar tightness in her chest, though it was no longer fear or hope, just the natural tension that came from dealing with someone who had caused her pain. Over the past 6 months, Victor had called numerous times, initially angry and threatening, then pleading and apologetic, and finally accepting but still trying to maintain some connection. "Tell him I'm in a meeting," Elena said. "Take a message if it's about the divorce proceedings, otherwise let him know I'll have my assistant return his call if it's urgent." Elena had learned to set boundaries with Victor, something she had never been able to do during their marriage. Their divorce had been swift and decisive, with Elena's lawyer ensuring she received her fair share of their marital assets. Victor had initially threatened to fight her, but the scandal from the gala had damaged his reputation enough that he couldn't afford a protracted public battle. The aftermath of that night had been swift and severe for Victor. Photos from the gala showing him with Sophia while his transformed wife confronted him had appeared in every society publication in the city. The narrative that emerged painted Victor as a man who was so ashamed of his wife that he had been publicly dating his assistant while keeping Elena hidden at home. Several business relationships had suffered as Victor's character came into question. The corporate world might forgive many things, but the systematic humiliation of a spouse suggested a fundamental lack of integrity that made partners nervous. Sophia had quickly distanced herself from the scandal, taking a position with a firm in another city and making it clear that she had been deceived about Victor's marital situation. Whether that was true or not, Elena didn't care. She had moved far beyond seeking revenge against the other woman. Elena's intercom buzzed again. "Elena? Dr. Andrews is here for your lunch appointment." Elena felt her face light up with genuine happiness. "Send him in." Daniel entered her office carrying a bouquet of sunflowers, not roses or orchids, but sunflowers because he had remembered her mentioning that they reminded her of hope and new beginnings. "You look beautiful," he said, kissing her cheek gently. "But then you always do." The simple compliment meant more to Elena than all the elaborate gestures Victor had made during their reconciliation attempts. Daniel's appreciation was genuine and consistent, not dependent on her appearance or behavior meeting his standards. "How was your morning at the hospital?" Elena asked, gathering her purse and jacket. "Busy but good. We had 3 successful surgeries and 2 families got great news about recovery prognosis." Daniel's face lit up when he talked about his work, the same way Elena's did when she discussed her business successes. As they walked to lunch together, Elena reflected on how different her life had become. She was no longer someone who had to ask permission to attend events or justify her presence in public spaces. She made her own decisions, built her own relationships, and created her own success. "I have something to tell you," Daniel said as they settled into their favorite restaurant. "I've been invited to speak at the medical conference in Chicago next month, and I was hoping you'd come with me." Elena smiled, remembering all the times Victor had attended conferences and business trips without her, claiming she would be bored or that spouses weren't welcome. "I'd love to," she replied. "I could schedule some meetings with non-profit organizations while I'm there. It would be a great opportunity to expand the business." Daniel's face lit up. "That's perfect. I love that you see it as an opportunity rather than an obligation." Their conversation was interrupted by a familiar voice. "Elena?" She looked up to see Margaret Whitfield approaching their table, the same society matron who had barely noticed Elena during her years as Victor's hidden wife. "Margaret, how wonderful to see you," Elena said warmly, standing to give her a brief hug. "My dear, I wanted to tell you how impressed everyone is with your work on the literacy campaign. The mayor mentioned that you've already exceeded the fundraising goals by 40%. "It's a cause I'm passionate about," Elena replied. "When you believe in something, it's easier to help others believe in it too." Margaret's eyes shifted to Daniel with obvious curiosity. "Margaret, I'd like you to meet Dr. Daniel Andrews." "Daniel, this is Margaret Whitfield, one of the city's most dedicated philanthropists." Elena felt a surge of pride as she made the introduction. There was no awkwardness, no shame, no need to explain or justify her relationship. She was simply a successful woman introducing her partner to a colleague. "Dr. Andrews, how nice to meet you," Margaret said warmly. "Elena is becoming quite the power player in our charitable circles. You should be very proud." "I am," Daniel replied, reaching over to squeeze Elena's hand. "Though I can't take any credit. Elena's success is entirely her own achievement." After Margaret left, Elena realized how significant that brief interaction had been. She was now someone people approached to discuss business and opportunities. She was being praised for her own accomplishments, not just tolerated as someone's wife. She had become visible in the best possible way. "You're glowing," Daniel observed, studying her face. "I was just thinking about how different everything is now," Elena said. 6 months ago I was invisible. People like Margaret barely acknowledged my existence when I was with Victor. Now she's praising my work and treating me like an equal." "You were never invisible," Daniel said quietly. "Some people just refuse to see you. Their blindness doesn't change who you've always been." Elena felt tears prick her eyes, but they were tears of gratitude rather than sadness. Daniel saw her clearly not as Victor's cast-off wife, not as someone who had transformed herself for revenge, but as a woman who had simply reclaimed her own power. That evening, Elena returned to her new apartment, a bright, airy space that reflected her personality rather than someone else's taste. She had sold the house she shared with Victor and chosen a place that felt like home to her alone. As she prepared dinner, Elena's phone rang. This time it was Rachel. "How was lunch with the handsome doctor?" Rachel asked immediately. "Wonderful," Elena replied, unable to keep the happiness out of her voice. "He asked me to go to Chicago with him next month for a medical conference. And I said yes. I'm excited about it, Rachel. I'm excited about my life." "You deserve to be excited," Rachel said firmly. "You deserve all the happiness you're finding. I have to admit, when you first told me about your plan for the gala, I was worried you were doing it for the wrong reasons." "What do you mean?" "I thought you might be trying to win Victor back or that you were just acting out of anger. But watching you these past 6 months, I can see that everything you did was about finding yourself again." Elena nodded, even though Rachel couldn't see her. The revenge wasn't about destroying Victor. It was about refusing to stay destroyed myself. "And look at you now. You're running a successful business, you're happy, you're in love with a man who appreciates you. You won, Elena. You completely won." After hanging up with Rachel, Elena poured herself a glass of wine and stepped onto her balcony overlooking the city. The lights twinkled below her like stars, and Elena felt a deep sense of contentment she hadn't experienced in years. Her phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. "Thank you for a perfect afternoon. Can't wait to see you tomorrow evening." Elena smiled, realizing that she was no longer waiting for her life to begin. She was living it fully, authentically, and on her own terms. The woman who had once been ashamed of herself because her husband was ashamed of her had become someone who radiated confidence and success. The wife who had been hidden away had become a woman impossible to ignore. But most importantly, Elena had learned that her worth had never been dependent on someone else's ability to see it. She had always been valuable, always been worthy of love and respect, always been deserving of pride rather than shame. Victor had lost more than just a wife when Elena walked away from him that night at the gala. He had lost the opportunity to be part of an extraordinary woman's journey to reclaiming her power. As Elena raised her wine glass in a silent toast to her new life, she felt nothing but gratitude for the journey that had brought her here. Sometimes the greatest gift someone could give you was showing you exactly what you deserved, even if they did it by showing you what you didn't deserve first. Elena Morrison was no longer Victor's hidden wife. She was Elena Morrison, CEO, philanthropist, partner, and most importantly, a woman who would never again allow anyone to make her feel invisible. Her story wasn't about revenge against the man who had wronged her. It was about the woman who had refused to stay wronged. And that woman was just getting started.